The dark beginning. The night was cold, the wind moved through the empty streets, and the rain fell without stopping. Dark clouds covered the moon, and the world looked empty, almost forgotten. In this darkness, a small figure walked alone, her steps soft, her body shaking from the cold. It was a little girl, but not an ordinary girl. Her skin was pale, and faint blue veins glowed under it. Her large eyes shined like pieces of a lost star. She hugged a broken toy close to her chest. It was the only thing left from her real family. Her tiny feet were bare, pressing into the wet ground, but she kept walking because she had no place to go. In her ears, she still heard the sharp voice of her stepmother, a voice filled with hate. "You do not belong here. You are not one of us. Leave this house and never come back." Those words cut deeper than the cold rain, and they echoed again and again in her small heart. The girl tried to stay brave, but her tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. She was too young to understand why she was different, too innocent to know why love had been taken from her. Her stepmother had looked at her glowing eyes with fear and with cruelty, and had chosen to throw her away like trash. The girl whispered to herself, "If I don't find help, I will disappear. I will fade." Her voice was small, but in the empty street, it sounded like a fragile promise. The night grew darker, and strange sounds filled the silence. The rustle of leaves, the crack of wood, the hum of faraway machines. Every sound made the little girl shake. She wanted to hide, but there was nowhere safe. Her stomach was empty, and her body was weak, but her heart pushed her forward. Somewhere, someone must help. Somewhere, someone must see her as more than a mistake. She walked until her feet hurt, and then she saw it. Ahead of her, under a broken streetlight, there was a man. He was bending over a car, his hands black with grease, trying to fix something in the engine. He looked tired, maybe lonely, but strong, and for the first time that night, the girl felt a small spark of hope. She stopped, hiding behind a wall, and watched him. She wondered, is he kind, or will he send me away too? Her heart beat fast, faster than the raindrops hitting the ground. She remembered her stepmother's last words, but she also remembered her father's gentle face. Long ago, before he was gone, her father had told her, "One day, you will find someone who will protect you." Maybe this man could be that person. Maybe this was her last chance. She stepped out from the shadows, her small figure shaking, her toy pressed tightly to her chest. The man heard the sound and turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw her glowing eyes in the dark. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the rain falling between them. The girl felt fear, but she also felt something stronger, a desperate need. With a trembling voice, she spoke the words that had been trapped in her heart. "Please, be my dad. I won't misbehave." Her voice was soft, but it carried all the pain of being abandoned, all the fear of being alone, and all the hope of finding a family again. The man froze, his tools slipping from his hands, his mind unable to believe what he had just heard. The night grew still, and the world seemed to wait for his answer. The man stood still, his hands frozen in midair, the sound of the rain on metal louder than his thoughts. He looked at the small figure in front of him, her glowing eyes, her trembling hands holding a broken toy. He blinked once, then twice, thinking maybe the night was playing tricks on him. But no, the girl was real, standing there in the middle of the streetlight, rain running down her small face like endless tears. Her words echoed in his mind. "Please, be my dad. I won't misbehave." Such strange words, such heavy words for such a tiny child. He did not know what to say. His throat felt dry, his heart heavy. He had lived alone for many years. No family, no wife, no children, only work and silence. Now, in this moment, a child he had never seen before was asking him for a father. The girl stepped closer, her bare feet splashing in the puddles. Her lips were trembling, but her voice tried to stay strong. "My stepmother threw me out. She said I don't belong. I don't want to be alone. I can help you. I won't cause trouble." Her voice cracked and her eyes lowered, as if afraid he might yell at her, as if afraid he might throw her away too. The man's chest tightened. There was something in her eyes, something more than human. He noticed the faint glow of her veins, the way the light seemed to bend around her. He had heard stories of strange children, rumors whispered about experiments, about visitors from far away. Was she one of them? Was she dangerous? Or was she only a lost child in need of love? The man wiped his wet hands on his jacket, his mind a storm of questions. He had sworn never to care for anyone again, after losing everything in his own life. But looking at her small figure, shaking in the rain, he felt a pull deep inside his chest. It was not reason, it was not logic, it was something older, something simple. It was the instinct to protect, to shelter. or to give warmth to someone who had none. The girl's voice broke the silence again, softer this time. If you don't help me, I will disappear. The man's hands tightened into fists, his jaw clenched. He did not know what she meant, but the fear in her words felt real. It was the kind of fear no child should carry. He bent down, his eyes level with hers, rain dripping from his hair. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice rough. The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Leora." The name sounded strange, almost musical, like it did not belong to this world. The man nodded slowly, repeating it once under his breath. Leora, as if trying to make it real. His old car sat waiting, the door half open, the engine still silent. He looked at the seat, then at the girl, then at the empty night around them, hunters, thieves, dangers. He did not know who or what might be looking for her, but he knew the street was no place for a child, not tonight, not ever. Finally, with a heavy breath, he moved to the side and opened the car door wider. "Get in," he said quietly. The girl's eyes widened, glowing brighter for a moment. She clutched her broken toy and climbed inside, her small frame sinking into the seat. For the first time in her life, she felt a shadow of safety, a chance that someone would not leave her behind. The man closed the door, his heart beating faster than the falling rain. He sat behind the wheel, started the car, and drove into the night. Neither of them spoke, but the silence between them was not empty. It was the beginning of something dangerous, something fragile, but also something powerful. The encounter had changed both their lives forever. The car moved slowly through the rain, the old wipers squeaking across the windshield. The man kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was somewhere else. Beside him, the small girl sat quietly, her toy clutched close to her chest, her glowing eyes staring out at the dark streets. The silence was heavy, filled with unspoken questions and hidden fears. He wanted to ask her many things, who she really was, where she came from, why her eyes glowed in the night. But when he looked at her small frame, wet and shivering, his words stayed locked inside. She looked fragile, but there was something powerful in her too, something he could not understand. He wondered if he had made a mistake, letting her into his car, letting her into his life. The girl broke the silence with a small voice. "Are you angry?" she asked, not looking at him. The man blinked. "No, I'm not angry," he answered, his voice calm but uncertain. She hugged her toy tighter, whispering, "I'll be good, I promise. I can help you with work. I don't need much food. I don't need much space. Just don't send me away." Her words pierced through him like knives. He remembered his own past, a time when he too had been left behind, alone in a cold world. That memory hurt, but it also softened him. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, feeling the weight of her request. He knew this was not a simple choice. If he kept her, his life would change forever. She was not a normal child. He could already see that, and he knew others might be searching for her, others who might not have good intentions. The man pulled the car over to the side of the road, the engine rumbling low. The rain hit the roof like a drum, steady and strong. He turned to face her, his voice serious. "Leora, I need to know the truth. Who are you really?" The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with fear, her lips trembling. I don't know how to explain. I was born different. My stepmother hated me. She said I was a curse. She said if people found out about me, they would take me away." Her voice cracked, her small hands shaking as she spoke. "She told me I don't deserve a home, that I don't deserve love, so she threw me out." The man's chest felt heavy. He could see the pain in every word she spoke, but behind that pain, he saw hope, a desperate hope that maybe he would not turn her away. He leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes for a moment, his thoughts racing. If he left her now, she would not survive the night. She would vanish into the shadows, just another forgotten child in a cruel world. But if he kept her, if he became her protector, he would be stepping into a storm he could not control. The decision was not easy, but deep inside, he already knew the answer. He opened his eyes and looked at her, his voice low but steady. "You're safe now. As long as you're with me, no one will throw you away again." For a moment, the girl did not believe him. Her breath caught in her throat. But then, slowly, her lips curved into the smallest smile, the first smile she had shown in years. She whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Her voice shaking but filled with relief. The man's heart clenched at that word, a word he had never thought he would hear again. He looked away quickly, hiding the emotion in his eyes, but deep inside, something warm began to grow. The car started moving again, the rain still falling, but the silence had changed. It was no longer the silence of strangers. It was the silence of a bond forming, fragile but real. The man had made his choice, and the road ahead would not be safe. But for the first time in many years, he was no longer alone, and neither was she. The man's small house stood at the edge of town, quiet and forgotten. It was not much, only 2 rooms, an old wooden table, and walls that carried the weight of years. But to the girl, it felt like a palace, a place with a roof, warmth, and a door that closed against the cold night. She stepped inside slowly, her glowing eyes moving over everything with wonder. The man placed an old blanket on the chair and handed it to her. "You must be freezing," he said, his voice rough but kind. The girl wrapped it around herself, the fabric worn but warm, and whispered, "Thank you." Her small body stopped shaking, and for the first time in days, she felt safe. Yet, safety was only on the surface. Strange things began to happen, small things at first. When she cried softly in the corner, the light bulb above them flickered. When she touched the wooden table, the old cracks seemed to fade for a moment, as if time itself had bent. At night, when she dreamed, the air in the room hummed with energy, and the man would wake to see objects moving gently, floating as if pulled by unseen hands. He tried to tell himself it was only his imagination, maybe the stress of loneliness and too many sleepless nights. But each time it happened, he could not ignore it. She was different, not only in her glowing eyes and strange name, but in ways the world would never understand. And yet, she never seemed to notice what she was doing, or maybe she was trying hard to hide it. One evening he found her sitting by the window, staring at the stars. Her broken toy lay beside her, and her lips moved softly, whispering words he could not understand. It was not English, not any human language he had ever heard. The sound was gentle, like music carried by the wind, and for a moment, he felt a chill run through him. When she realized he was watching, she quickly stopped and hugged the toy tight. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean to. Please don't be angry." The man frowned, but not in anger, only in confusion. "What were you saying, Leora?" he asked, his voice calm. She lowered her head, whispering, "It's a song my real mother taught me before she was gone. It's the only thing I remember." His chest tightened. He wanted to ask more, but he saw the tears forming in her eyes, and he let the question fade. Still, he could not ignore the signs, the lights, the movement, the strange song. He knew deep inside, she was not from here, not fully, not in the way other children were. And that truth was dangerous, because the world was cruel to things it could not understand. That night, as she slept on the small bed he had given her, he sat at the table, staring at the dark window. The rain had stopped, the night was silent, but his mind was loud. He thought about the choice he had made, the decision to bring her into his life. Already the shadows of mystery had entered his home, and he knew it would not stop here. In the silence, he heard a soft hum. He turned and saw her glowing faintly in her sleep. The blanket rose and fell as if moved by an invisible breeze. The air itself seemed alive around her. He held his breath, afraid to disturb her, afraid to wake her power. For a moment, she looked less like a child and more like something beyond human, fragile but also powerful. The man leaned back slowly, his heart heavy. He had promised to protect her, but how could he protect her from herself? And worse, how could he protect her from the world, if the world ever discovered what she really was? He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, "She's just a child. She deserves a chance." But even as he spoke the words, he felt it in his bones. This was only the beginning, and the secret signs were warnings of something much bigger to come. The night was calm, but calmness never lasts forever. In the small house, the man slept lightly in his chair, while the girl lay curled under her blanket. The air was quiet, only the sound of crickets outside and the soft breathing of a child inside. Yet far beyond the silence, danger was already moving. The stepmother had not forgotten the girl. She never wanted her alive in the first place. To her, Leora was a curse, a reminder of something broken, something alien. When she threw her out, she expected the girl to vanish, to disappear into the darkness. But when whispers reached her that the child was still alive, she grew angry. And in her anger, she called upon others, hunters who thrived in shadows, hunters who were not fully human. They moved through the night like wolves, following trails others could not see. The girl's glowing energy was like a beacon to them, a silent signal in the air. Step by step, they drew closer to the small house at the edge of town. Their eyes glowed faintly under their hoods, their breaths cold, their weapons sharp and strange. Inside the house, the girl stirred in her sleep, her dreams uneasy. She saw flashes of fire, shadows chasing her, voices whispering her name. Her body shook, and the blanket rose slightly into the air, the walls trembling with a low hum. The man woke instantly, his eyes snapping open. his instincts telling him something was wrong. He looked at her glowing faintly, her face twisted in fear. He rushed to her side, shaking her gently, whispering, "Leora, wake up, it's just a dream." But as her eyes opened, the window rattled violently, and in the distance, a dog howled. The girl clung to him, whispering, "They're coming." The man froze, his heart pounding. "Who's coming?" he asked, but her trembling body was answer enough. He went to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to look outside, at first, and he saw nothing but the empty road and the pale glow of the moon. Then, at the edge of the trees, he saw them, dark figures moving slowly, too many, too quiet, too wrong. His stomach dropped. He knew those men were not ordinary. They moved like hunters, and their eyes, glowing faintly, confirmed what his gut already screamed. They were after her, and they had found them. He stepped back, his hands shaking but his mind already racing. The girl stood behind him, her toy clutched tight, her voice soft but certain. "They will take me. They will hurt you. Please, you should leave me. It is safer for you." But the man turned sharply, anger in his eyes. "No, I made my choice. You are not alone anymore. Do you hear me? Not anymore." For a moment, silence filled the room, her wide eyes searching his face. She wanted to argue, but she could not, because deep inside she believed him. She whispered, "Then we must run." And the lights flickered as if agreeing with her. The man grabbed an old bag, filling it with what little he had: food, water, a small flashlight, and a rusted knife he once used for work. It was not much, but it was all they had. He looked at her small frame, her glowing veins hidden beneath the blanket, and he felt fear claw at him. Not fear of her, but fear of losing her. Outside, the hunters drew closer, their shadows stretching long across the road, their whispers carried in the wind, their footsteps silent but heavy. The girl held his hand tightly, her small fingers trembling in his rough grip. The man's jaw tightened, his voice low. "Stay close. Don't let go, no matter what happens." Together, they slipped out the back door, the night air colder than before. The house stood behind them, silent and lonely, as if it already knew they would not return. In the trees, something moved, and the man pulled her closer. The chase had begun, and there was no turning back. The forest was dark, the air damp with the smell of earth and rain. Branches cracked under their hurried steps, shadows twisted around them, and every sound felt louder than it should. The man held the girl's hand tightly, his other hand gripping the small flashlight, its weak beam cutting through the night. Behind them, the hunters moved in silence, patient and steady, like wolves following prey. The girl's legs were tired, her breaths short and uneven, but she did not complain. She only held on, her glowing eyes fixed on his rough hand pulling her forward. Every time she stumbled, he steadied her. Every time she slowed, he whispered, "Just a little more." Though his body ached, he refused to stop, because stopping meant death. At last, they reached an abandoned shed at the edge of the forest, half broken and leaning to one side. The man pushed the door open with his shoulder, guiding her inside. The place smelled of rust and old wood, but it was shelter. He set the bag down and turned to her, his face tense, his breathing heavy. "Rest here for a moment," he said, trying to hide the fear in his voice. The girl sat on the ground, her blanket wrapped tightly around her small body. Her toy rested in her lap, and she looked up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. "You should not risk yourself for me," she whispered. "They will not stop. They will hurt you. It would be easier if I was gone." The man knelt in front of her, his hands on her shoulders, his voice firm. "Listen to me, Leora. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they want. You are not a burden. You are not a mistake. You are a child, and no child should ever think they deserve to be thrown away." Her eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered, her voice cracking. He softened, pulling her into his arms, her small body shaking against his chest. For a moment, meant the world outside did not exist, only the sound of her quiet sobs and his steady heart. He realized then how fragile she was, not only because of the hunters, but because of the wounds left in her heart. He had taken her in by chance, but now he felt something stronger, a promise he would never let her go. After a while, the girl sat back, wiping her face. She looked at the broken flashlight lying on the ground, its battery weak. She reached out, touching it with her small hand, and to the man's surprise, the light grew brighter, steady and strong. He stared in silence as she whispered, "I can help. I can fix things. Sometimes my power listens to me." The man exhaled slowly, his fear of her power mixing with awe. "You don't need to hide from me," he said. "Whatever you are, whatever you can do, I will not turn you away." Her lips curved into a faint smile, small but real. Then I will be useful. I will help you. I will not be trouble. He shook his head gently. You don't have to earn your place. You already belong. The words sank deep into her, stronger than any shield. For the first time, she began to believe she was more than a curse, more than a mistake. Outside, a branch snapped, and the man froze. The hunters were still near, their patience unbroken, their search tireless. But in that moment, inside the broken shed, something unshakable had formed. A bond, fragile yet stronger than fear. A bond of trust between a lonely man and a lost alien child. The night was not safe. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They were no longer just two souls running from shadows. They were father and daughter in heart, standing together against whatever was coming. The shed grew colder as the night passed. The small fire they had made was weak, its smoke slipping through the cracks in the roof. The man sat near the door, his hand tight around the rusty knife, his eyes heavy, but still alert. The girl lay wrapped in her blanket, her toy held against her chest, her glowing eyes half closed, fighting sleep. Silence filled the place, but it was the kind of silence that carried secrets heavy and waiting to break. The man looked at her and finally spoke, his voice low. Leora, I need to know the truth. Who are you really? The girl flinched, her small fingers tightening on the toy. I told you, I was thrown out. My stepmother hated me, she whispered, but her voice was shaky, as if hiding more than it revealed. He leaned closer, his eyes firm. I see the way the lights change when you're upset. I saw you fix the flashlight without touching wires. I hear you whisper words no one here understands. You're not like other children, and I need to know why. The girl's lips trembled. She shook her head as if the truth might break her. But then, slowly, with tears in her glowing eyes, she reached inside her blanket and pulled out something small. It was a crystal locket, glowing faintly in the dark. The man's breath caught as the girl held it out, her voice shaking. This is all I have left from my real family. It shows who I am. She touched the crystal gently, and light spilled from it, filling the shed with soft colors that danced across the broken walls. In the light, an image appeared, not like a picture, but alive. It showed a woman with the same glowing eyes as the girl, her face kind, her arms reaching out. Beside her stood a tall man with strong features, his hand resting on the woman's shoulder. Behind them, a sky filled with twin moons and silver towers reaching into the clouds, a world not of Earth. The man stared, his chest tight. Your parents, he whispered, unable to find more words. The girl nodded, tears falling down her cheeks. They were my real mother and father. They came from far away, but they died when I was small. My stepmother never forgave me for surviving. Her voice cracked as she hugged the locket close. She said I was the reason everything was destroyed. She said I was cursed. She said I didn't deserve to live. The man felt anger burn inside him. Anger at the cruelty of a woman who could cast out a child. Anger at a world that would call someone a curse just for being different. He placed his rough hand gently on her shoulder, his voice steady. You are not a curse, Leora. You are a child. You are a survivor. She looked at him, her tears glowing in the crystal light. But if people find out, they will come for me. They will take me away. They will hurt you too. The man shook his head slowly, his voice firm. Then let them try. I will not let anyone take you. I promised you a home, and I meant it. For the first time, she smiled through her tears, a small, fragile smile but real. The crystal light dimmed, and the image of her family faded back into the stone. She pressed it to her chest and whispered, Thank you, Dad. The man sat back, his heart heavy but stronger. The truth had been revealed, and though it frightened him, it also gave him purpose. Outside the shed, the hunters moved closer, their whispers mixing with the wind. They did not know yet what she carried, but they could feel it. They could sense the power of the last child of a lost world. Inside, father and daughter sat together, their bond stronger than before. The revelation had come, and with it, the promise of greater dangers ahead. The night was heavy, the forest still, but danger breathed in every shadow. Inside the shed, the man tried to rest with one eye open, the rusty knife beside him. Leora slept lightly, the crystal locket glowing faintly in her small hand, her breaths uneven, as if she too felt the storm about to break. The silence was thin, fragile, and then it shattered. A low thud came from outside. Then another, slow and deliberate. The man's eyes snapped open, his hand gripping the knife tightly, his body tense. He rose silently and moved to the broken window, peering into the darkness. Shapes moved between the trees, tall and cloaked, their eyes glowing faintly. The hunters had arrived. The man's heart pounded, his throat dry. He turned to Leora, whispering sharply, "Wake up now." She stirred, confused at first. Then her glowing eyes widened as she felt it too. "They found us," she whispered, her voice trembling. Before he could answer, the door shook violently, a loud crash echoing through the shed. Dust rained from the ceiling. The walls groaned. The hunters were trying to break through. The man grabbed the bag, pulling Leora to her feet. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice firm but his hands shaking. The door banged again, harder this time, wood splintering under the force. Through the cracks, glowing eyes peered inside, cold and unblinking. A voice hissed, sharp and inhuman. "Give us the child and we will spare you." The man's jaw clenched, his anger boiling. "She's not yours," he growled back. The voice laughed, low and cruel. "She is not yours either, human. She does not belong with you. She never will." The girl clutched his arm, her small fingers trembling. "Dad, they will kill you. Please run. Leave me." But the man shook his head, his voice like stone. "No, I will not leave you, not ever." With a final crash, the door burst open, splinters flying across the floor. 3 hunters stepped inside, their cloaks brushing the ground, their faces hidden, only their glowing eyes visible. Their weapons shimmered strangely, blades that looked alive, twisting like shadows made solid. The man stood tall, the rusty knife in his hand, tiny compared to theirs, but his stance unbroken. One hunter stepped forward, pointing its blade at him. "You cannot fight us, give her to us, and you may live." The man raised the knife, his voice steady. "She is my daughter, and you'll have to kill me first." The hunters moved quickly, too quickly, their steps silent but deadly. The man swung his knife, blocking one strike, the force sending pain through his arm. He stumbled but did not fall, his body standing firm between them and the girl. Behind him, Leora screamed, her fear making the air tremble. The crystal in her hand glowed brighter, her small body shaking with energy. The ground vibrated, the air filled with a sharp hum. The hunters paused for a moment, their glowing eyes narrowing. They had wanted her power, but they had not expected it to awaken so soon. The man turned his head slightly, shouting, "Leora, don't be afraid, use it, let it out." Her tears glowed as much as her eyes, her small voice breaking. "I can't control it, I'll hurt you." But he answered without hesitation, "Trust me, I'm not afraid." The hunters rushed again, their blades slicing through the air. At that moment, the crystal burst with light, blinding and fierce. The walls of the shed shook, the roof cracked, and a wave of energy pushed outward like a storm. The hunters were thrown back, their cloaks tearing, their bodies crashing into the trees outside. The man shielded his eyes, the force nearly knocking him down. When the light faded, he turned to see her standing there, trembling but alive, her crystal dim once more. She looked at him with wide eyes, terrified of what she had done, but he dropped the knife and pulled her close, whispering, "You didn't hurt me, you saved us." Outside, the hunters stirred, not defeated, only delayed. Their whispers carried through the broken night, promising they would return. The attack had begun, and the war for the child's fate was far from over. The shed was broken, the roof half torn, the night outside glowing faintly from the strange energy that had burst from Leora. Smoke rose from the splintered wood, the forest around them shivered in silence. The hunters were thrown back, but they were not gone. Their cloaks stirred in the dark, their glowing eyes steady, their voices hissing like snakes. The man pulled Leora behind him, his chest rising fast, his rusty knife trembling in his hand. "They won't stop," she whispered, her voice filled with fear. "They'll keep coming until they take me." He looked at her, his face sharp with determination. "Then we fight, together." Her glowing eyes widened. "But I'll lose control. I'll hurt you." He shook his head firmly. "I'd rather stand with you and face them than stand alone without you." The hunters stepped closer, their blades glowing with strange light, shadows twisting around them as if alive. One of them raised its voice, deep and cruel. "You are foolish, human. You stand in the way of something greater. She is ours by blood. She is not yours to protect." The man lifted his knife, his voice steady like iron. "She is my daughter now, and you'll never take her." The hunters rushed, their speed inhuman, their movements sharp as storms. The man swung, blocking one strike, sparks flying from metal on metal. His arm ached, his body strained, but he did not fall. Behind him, Leora cried out, her hands glowing, the crystal locket pulsing with power. Energy surged through the shed, shaking the ground. The hunters stumbled for a moment, their cloaks twisting in the force. Leora gasped, "I can't control it, it's too strong." but the man's voice cut through her fear. "Look at me. Focus on me, not them. Only me." She turned her glowing eyes toward him, her small body shaking. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You won't," he answered, his voice steady even as the hunters closed in. In that moment, her fear shifted into something stronger, something she had never felt before. Trust. Her hands lifted, light spilling from her fingertips like fire and water combined. The hunters swung their blades, but the light bent, twisting around the metal, burning through it like smoke. One hunter screamed, its cloak catching fire, its body thrown back into the trees. The others staggered, but pressed on, their eyes blazing with fury. The man fought with all he had, his knife cutting, blocking, striking, his arms heavy but unbroken. Every time he faltered, Leora's power pushed them back, a shield of light holding them. Together they moved, one in body, one in spirit, father and daughter standing side by side. The hunters hissed louder, their voices desperate now. "She belongs to us. She is the last of her kind. She will never be yours." But the man shouted back, his voice echoing in the broken night. "She belongs where she is loved. She belongs with me," Leora cried out, her power bursting brighter than before. The forest lit up as if day had returned. Trees shook, the earth cracked, the hunters were thrown to the ground, their blades shattered, their cloaks burning. The air filled with the sound of their furious cries before silence swallowed them. When the light dimmed, Leora fell to her knees, her body trembling, her breath weak. The man dropped beside her, wrapping his arms around her small frame. "You did it," he whispered, his voice soft with pride. Her glowing eyes looked up at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't hurt you?" she asked, her voice fragile. He shook his head, smiling faintly through his exhaustion. "No, you saved me." Outside, the hunters' bodies faded into the shadows, not dead, only retreating, their whispers promising to return. But for now, the night was quiet again, and in that quiet, a bond had been sealed, stronger than fear, stronger than blood. They had stood together, and together they had survived. The night was finally quiet. The hunters had vanished into the shadows, their cruel voices fading into the distance. The shed was broken, the forest scarred. Yet inside, a strange peace had settled. The man sat on the ground, his arms wrapped around the girl, her small frame resting against his chest. Her breaths were soft now, her glowing eyes dim, the crystal locket still warm from the power she had unleashed. For a long time neither spoke, only the sound of the wind filled the silence. Then slowly, Leora lifted her head, her voice trembling. "Did I do the right thing?" The man looked into her glowing eyes, his voice steady. "You did more than right. You saved us both. You saved yourself. And you proved you are stronger than they will ever be." Her lips curved into a small smile, but her tears shined in the pale light. "I was always told I was a curse," she whispered, "but you never saw me that way." The man brushed a tear from her cheek, his rough hand gentle. "You are not a curse. You are a gift, and I will never let anyone tell you otherwise." She leaned into him, her body relaxing, her heart finally believing what her ears had longed to hear. For the first time, she felt truly safe, not because she was hidden, but because someone chose to stand by her. The man looked at the ruined shed, the broken door, the marks of the hunters on the walls. He knew this place was no longer safe. The hunters would return, stronger and angrier. He stood, lifting the bag and helping her to her feet. "Come on," he said quietly. "We can't stay here, but we'll find a new place, somewhere better." Her small hand slid into his, her grip firm despite her exhaustion. "Wherever you go, I'll go too," she said softly, and her words carried the strength of a promise. They walked through the forest together, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon. The trees glowed with morning light, the shadows retreating at last. Birds began to sing, and for a moment, the world looked alive again. Leora's glowing eyes reflected the sunrise, soft golden light mixing with her blue veins, making her seem both human and not, both fragile and powerful. The man looked at her and felt something stir deep in his chest. He had lived alone for so long, his heart empty, his days gray. Now, with her beside him, he felt alive again, his steps carrying not only himself but her future too. She was not his by blood, but she was his by choice, and sometimes that bond was stronger than any bloodline. They stopped by a hill, the town in the far distance, the road stretching long and uncertain. Leora clutched her crystal, her voice soft. "Do you think I'll ever find out what happened to my real parents' world?" The man looked at the horizon, his eyes thoughtful. "Maybe one day, but for now, you have a home here, with me." Her small fingers squeezed his hand tighter, her glowing eyes bright with hope. "I'll protect you too," she whispered. "I promise. I'll never leave you." He smiled faintly, the corners of his tired eyes softening. "Then we'll protect each other," he said, and his voice carried strength. The wind moved across the hill, carrying with it the scent of a new day. Behind them, shadows still lingered, hunters plodding, dangers waiting. But ahead of them stretched a road full of possibilities, a path where father and daughter would face the unknown together. The past had been cruel, the night had been dark, but a new beginning had come, and as they walked hand in hand into the rising sun, the story of the man and the alien girl truly began.